We'll begin the session with the prayer. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the study of the life of the direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, that is Swami Adbhutanandaji Maharaj, by which we will be also studying the wonderful teachings and life of the Yuga Avatar Sri Ramakrishna. In the Ramakrishna phenomena, marked by many extraordinary and mysterious happenings, one of the most striking events is the transformation of the shepherd boy, Rakturam, into the extraordinary saints. So that is the miracle. Miracle is not curing some disease, giving some gold chain or gold ring, or some other things. That is a common miracle. But transformation of the character, even if you have having one habit, to give up that one single habit, I think you are aware in your own life, you can see, just to create a new habit or give up one old habit, it may take a whole lifetime. So our character is a bundle of habits, and our personality is a bundle of character. So many hundreds and thousands of habits makes one character, and so many characters make our personality. If it is so difficult to give up one habit, then what about the whole personality? If you read the spelling of habit, HABBIT, you remove the first letter H, then what remains? A bit. You remove the next letter A. Sorry, I told HABBIT. It is HABIT. Sorry for that. So you remove the next letter HA. If you remove A, bit remains. If you remove B, still it remains. So it's so difficult to give up one habit. Then what about the character? What about the personality? So the miracle of Ramakrishna was to, just by his touch, just by his look, he could transform the whole personality. So that was the mysterious happening. One of the most striking events in the transformation of the shepherd boy Rakturam into extraordinary saint. Very truly has this transformation been described as the greatest miracle of Sri Ramakrishna. Rakturam was first. So another first is Rakturam was the first amongst the direct disciples, the monastic disciples who came into contact with Sri Ramakrishna. Rakturam was the first among Sri Ramakrishna's all-renouncing disciples to see him. Again, Rakturam was the only apostle of Sri Ramakrishna who had no book learning at all. At least Sri Ramakrishna had some knowledge of the 3 R's, but Rakturam was blissfully ignorant of them. Once you know, Sri Ramakrishna tried himself to teach Bengali alphabet, but Sri Ramakrishna's endeavor did not succeed. Ramakrishna could give spiritual knowledge, the highest knowledge, but he couldn't teach alphabet to Rakturam. Rakturam, in his infancy, he had a severe attack of smallpox. I think many of us do not know the disease smallpox because it has been eradicated from the earth due to vaccination and so many other things. Earlier, it was a very deadly disease. So, Rakturam, as a baby in his infancy, had a severe attack of smallpox. People would lose their eyesight, people would lose their life or limbs or so many other things. It would be very dangerous. And it was also severe. And finding no way out of this disease at the time, the medical science was also not very much progressed. Only the village doctors would give some neem leaf and other decoctions. That's all. That was the only way by which they had to come out of it. So, no way out of this deadly severe attack of smallpox. Rakturam's mother fervently prayed to Lord Rama for the child's life. Miraculously enough, the infant recovered gradually from the deadly illness. The parents, taking it to be due to the mercy of Lord Rama, named him Rakturama, meaning Rakshaturama. I have told about it. Once saved by Sri Ramachandra. Now, Rakturama, being the son of a shepherd, he had to tend the flocks of sheep in his boyhood. Reminiscing about his boyhood experience, Latu Maharaj told later, well, I used to spend my days with shepherd boys. They were very guileless indeed. Unless one becomes guileless as they were, one cannot have real joy. So it is something like Lord Krishna also did not have education as a childhood because of Kamsa's problem. He had to run from village to village as a small child. He has to be a cowherd, grazing the cows on the bank of Yamuna. Later on, after killing Kamsa and leaving Vrindavan and going to Dwaraka, he went to Lord Krishna and Balarama went to Sandipini Ashrama, near Ujjain in Madhya Pradesh now. That ashrama is still there. I have visited that ashrama when I went to Ujjain. I visited that Sandipini ashrama where Lord Krishna had his education in that Gurukula. It was like a university under the tutelage of Rishi Sandipini. So it was later on that Lord Krishna got education. Now, similarly, we can see here the shepherd boy. There Krishna was grazing the cows. Here Latu was grazing the sheep. Poverty, misery, and bereavement dogged every footstep of this young boy. When scarcely 5 years, he lost his parents, both of them. Amid such hopeless circumstances, there blossomed, there bloomed spontaneously the bud of religious disposition with which child Rakturam was endowed with. His close affinity to nature helped him perceive the glory of God. In his quietude, because he was a great devotee of Ramachandra, he used to sing, "O mind, sing the glory of Sita Rama." The orphan boy was taken care of by his generous uncle, but his extravagance, however, finally ruined his uncle, and the latter was compelled to go to Calcutta in search of the job. Rakturam naturally had to accompany him there. Now, banishment from the rural setting was rather a shock to Rakturam, and it took quite some time to get himself adapted to city life. After some struggle, his uncle found out one of his native villagers named Pulchand was serving as an orderly to Sri Ramachandra Datta, the assistant chemist of the Calcutta Medical College. Pulchand succeeded in placing Rakturam as an attendant in Ramchandra Datta's stationery shop at College Square. Sometimes later, the shop had to be closed, and this boy Rakturam was employed as a servant in the home of Ramachandra Datta. Rakturam was hardworking, simple, and loyal. So Rakturam was lovingly called as Latu by the household of Ramachandra Datta. Why? By virtue of his quick grasp, soon felt at home in the intricacies of a sophisticated urban life. Modest and humble though he was, his moral courage and conviction gave him strength enough to stand against all odds. Ramchandra Datta, being a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, so his house was surcharged with religious atmosphere and frequent talks of God. Once, Latu heard Ramachandra Datta say, God watches man's mind. He does not bother about man's placement in life, or his status, or his achievements. On another occasion, Latu heard Ramchandra Datta say about the teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. What was that? One who is earnest in seeking God will surely realize Him. One should go into solitude and pray. Weep for Him. These words sank deep into his heart. Latu remembered these words throughout his life, and they brought about some visible changes in this young boy. It seems Latu's strong common sense helped him choose a way of life for himself. Thereafter, Latu would sometimes be seen lying covered in his blanket, often wiping tears from his eyes, praying to God. Hardly anyone could understand him then. The ladies of the family sympathized with the poor boy, who they thought was perhaps grieving for his home or for his mother or father or about his family members. Latu often heard Ramachandra talk reverently of Sri Ramakrishna and left and felt an urge to see the great saint. Soon thereafter, he got an opportunity to do so. One Sunday in early January 1880, when Ramachandra Datta was preparing himself for a visit to Sri Ramakrishna, Latu ventured to ask his permission to accompany him to Dakshineshwar, to which Ramachandra Datta agreed. Sri Ramakrishna was then 44 years old, was a unique personality who radiated peace and tranquility. He had found peace by realizing all varieties of religious experiences, some of which even surpassed those described in the holy texts. His wonderful power of integrating apparently divergent religious paths, his profound knowledge of the science of spirituality, his broad visions of the divine nature of men, and above all, his deep love and concern for human beings, made his life and teaching a living exposition of the bright Indian tradition. In fact, he was like a great epic which epitomizes all shades of religious faith in one life. And soon he was to become the center round which sincere aspirants of different faiths were to rally, each regarding him as his own light. Now, Dakshineshwar temple of Kali, built by Rani Rasmani, had been the home of Ramakrishna for 24 years, almost half of his life. Ramakrishna lived for 50 years from 1836 to 1886. And of that, Ramakrishna spent 24 years, especially the life of sadhana and the life of the Guru and teaching his teachings. So 24 years of his precious life was spent in Dakshineshwar, almost half his life. He lived in a room in the northwestern corner of the temple complex built by Rani Rasmani. He deprecated sectarian views. Controversial theological discussions were not liked by him. And he encouraged in men and women childlike simplicity, love of God, and resignation to the will of God. Naturally, he exercised profound influence on all who happened to come in contact with him. Men of high rank and great learning flocked around the simple and unassuming saint of Dakshineshwar, who were all seemed to remain saturated in divine bliss. Ramakrishna himself once explained the magnetic attraction people felt for him. He said, "It's God alone who exists in this," meaning his own body. It is God alone who exists here. That is why so many people are feeling more and more attracted to this. A mere touch is enough to awaken their spirituality. This attraction, this pull, is the attraction of God and of none else. Latu also came under the spell of this attraction. Ramachandra Datta came with Latu to Dakshineshwar temple when Ramlal, the nephew, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew, was standing nearby. Ramachandra Datta entered into Sri Ramakrishna's room while Latu kept standing on the western porch. Sri Ramakrishna was not in the room then, but soon afterwards appeared in the porch. He was crooning the song, "O Friend." Ramakrishna was singing, this song. Oh friend, that day I stood at my door as you were going to the woods, etc. Seeing him there, Ramachandra Datta came to the porch. Now Ramakrishna's eye fell on this short statured, strong, and stout Latu. Sri Ramakrishna asked Ramachandra, have you brought this boy with you? Well, Ram, where did you find him? I see in him signs of holy man. Now, Ramakrishna himself, a connoisseur of the science of spirituality, would see men or women through and through. He easily assessed the spiritual potentiality of Latu and decided to make him manifest it fully without changing the distinctive features of his personality. That was the speciality of Sri Ramakrishna. He would never disturb the faith of anybody. He would make them develop their life in spirituality in whatever ways they liked. They had that demeanor or their bhava. He would not disturb their feelings or beliefs. He would develop them from where they were or as they were. Now, Ramakrishna also recognized the new arrival as belonging to his inner circle of devotees. On the other hand, Latu was charmed to see the most unassuming but attractive personality of Sri Ramakrishna. He himself, Latu, was very simple, and seeing another more simpler man than him, so simple and guileless, Ramakrishna, was naturally attracted to that personality of Sri Ramakrishna, was radiant with a smile of innocence and purity. A wave of joy leapt into the heart of Latu as he looked into the affectionate eyes of Sri Ramakrishna. Timid, unobtrusive, and loving, Latu felt deeply drawn towards Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna and Ramachandra Datta entered into the room, but Latu hesitated to go inside. Ramlal's, that is the nephew of Sri Ramakrishna's persuasion, also failed to dispel his hesitation. Now summoned by Sri Ramakrishna himself, Latu went into the room and following Ramachandra Datta made obeisance to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna began to converse with Ramachandra, but noticing that Latu was still standing, Sri Ramakrishna lovingly said to him, come, my dear boy, take your seat. Latu hesitated to sit near his master, Ramachandra Datta, because in those days, that was a practice. You cannot go and sit down freely where your master, if you are a servant, you can't do that. Latu hesitated to sit near his master Ramachandra and kept standing. Sri Ramakrishna said, knowledge is always within the grip of Nitya Siddha, the ever free Nitya Siddha in every birth. They are like fountains hidden under stone. As soon as some expert removes the obstacle, water gushes out. Scarcely had the topic of discussion closed before Sri Ramakrishna came forward and touched Latu with his hand. The electric touch gave rise to a wonderful experience within Latu. A mighty and mysterious love of God invaded his heart, and Latu lost his outer consciousness. Latu's body became motionless. Suddenly his hair stood on end, and he began to sob with profuse tears of joy streaming down his cheeks. His lips began to tremble. Ramachandra Datta was astonished at such an outburst. Under the pressure of a surprisingly sweet experience, Latu continued shedding tears for more than an hour. At last, Ramachandra Datta pleaded with Sri Ramakrishna. to help Latu regain his normal state. Then again, Sri Ramakrishna touched him, and thereafter, Latu could control himself to a certain extent. At Sri Ramakrishna's bidding, Ramlal gave little prasad to Latu. When he partook of the prasad, he came back to his normal self. For the simple-minded boy, this was certainly a revealing experience which revolutionized his mind. And to Sri Ramakrishna, the test revealed Latu's potentiality. He came to know what was the inner preparation of Latu. Where was he? What was his stages in the state of evolution? His potentiality and mental preparedness for receiving spiritual gifts which Sri Ramakrishna was eager to distribute. Sri Ramakrishna would not give everybody the same teachings. According to their stages of evolution, the teachings would be different. As many people, so many paths. Sri Ramakrishna asked Latu to visit the temples, and he did accordingly. When Ramachandra Datta was about to take leave of Sri Ramakrishna, the latter said, "Hello, please send this boy here now and then." Addressing Latu, Sri Ramakrishna said, "Come here, come as frequently as possible." We all know Ramakrishna addressed Latu as Leto or Neto. And for all others, the name Latu became popular. With an indelible impression on his mind, Latu returned home a changed man. He became indrawn, despite all remonstrations from the members of the Datta family. He was finding his household duties insipid and uninteresting. He was moving like a wound-up spring toy. He felt that his contemplative mood was being interrupted by idle diversion again and again. Weeks later, in February 1880, another opportunity came to Latu to go to Sri Ramakrishna. He walked more than 6 miles carrying some fruits and sweets sent by Ramachandra Datta and arrived at Dakshineshwar about 11 a.m. He met Sri Ramakrishna in the garden path itself and prostrated at his feet. In the company of Sri Ramakrishna, he witnessed the Arati at the Vishnu temple. Now Latu became so fervent that he began to chant loudly, "Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram." Arati over, Sri Ramakrishna asked Latu to take prasad at the temple, which the boy's orthodox mind refused to accept. But his strong common sense immediately made a compromise, and he said, "I will not take the Kali prasad, but I will take your prasad only, and nothing else." Obviously, this pleased Sri Ramakrishna. Now, some days later, Ramakrishna went to Kamarpukur on the advice of his physician and stayed there for nearly 8 months. Latu missed Sri Ramakrishna very much, and he felt a void in his life. As it were, visits to Dakshineshwar made him all the more desolate and morose, for the memory of Sri Ramakrishna's deep affection and concern haunted his mind. Wreathing in mental agony, he would unburden his heart by weeping in secret. Describing his suffering, he later said, "You know, my mind used to get restless very much thinking of Sri Ramakrishna. What will you understand of the sufferings I had then? Truly do I say that you cannot understand my heart." Only Ramachandra Datta. So now you used to address Ramachandra Datta, his master, as Ram Babu, out of respect. Only Ram Babu could some extent appreciate my feelings, and he used to console me. Now he gave me a photograph of Sri Ramakrishna. When Sri Ramakrishna returned to Dakshineshwar, Latu now acquired a new lease of life, as it were. On the occasion of his next visit to Sri Ramakrishna, the latter asked him to stay overnight. which Latu gladly did. After night meal, he began to massage, stroke on the feet of Sri Ramakrishna's feet. This touch of the feet of Sri Ramakrishna brought about an overwhelming experience in him. Now Latu began shedding tears. Gradually he became speechless and sat motionless with his eye fixed. Hours after hours passed. Hour after hour passed, his condition remained unchanged. This upsurge of ecstasy continued till next day noon. Can you imagine? From that evening to next day noon, that high spiritual fervor, Bhava Samadhi, continued. This upsurge of ecstasy continued till the next day noon, when Sri Ramakrishna helped him regain his normal consciousness. Latu became himself again. On this occasion, Latu stayed with Sri Ramakrishna for 3 days. Only after much persuasion, Latu could be sent back to his house of his master Ramachandra Datta. By this time, Latu had developed such a great attachment to Sri Ramakrishna that he wished to live always with Ramakrishna. He couldn't give up his company. In June 1881, Hriday Mukherjee, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew and attendant, had to leave Dakshineshwar for good. And to replace him, Sri Ramakrishna proposed Latu's name to Ramachandra Datta, to which Ramachandra Datta was very glad. He gladly agreed. This fulfilled Latu's most cherished wish of doing personal service to Sri Ramakrishna and stay with him. He began to serve his Guru with one-pointed devotion, Guru Seva. You know that everything can be attained. We have seen so many sadhus, so much devoted to their Guru. We have seen so many saints who were so much devoted to their Guru, because it is the Guru who shows the path to God. So, one-pointed devotion of Latu and service to his Guru. He began to serve his Guru with one-pointed devotion. The claim of holy text that service to Guru leads one to the highest spiritual realization has been successfully verified in the life of Latu. A simple wish or a mere remark of the Guru was as good as sacred injunction to Latu. Just a simple wish. There is also a Sanskrit saying, Ingitagna. Even before the Guru would tell something, Latu could understand and he would do the work of Sri Ramakrishna beforehand. A simple wish of Sri Ramakrishna or a mere remark of Guru was as good as sacred injunction. It was Vedavakya for Latu. Whatever Sri Ramakrishna wanted, he was there to do. One day, Sri Ramakrishna found Latu sleeping in the evening time. Now, in India, we have a custom, especially in the evening, when the lamp is lit for the prayer to God, evening Arati time. In those days, there was no electricity. So somewhere in the Sayam Sandhya, evening Sandhya, the junction between the evening and night, they would light the lamp to God. At that time, if anybody sleeps, nobody should sleep at that time. You should be thinking of God or doing the service of God. Never should you sleep at that time. We in our childhood, our parents would tell that you should not sleep when the lamp is being lit in the evening. You should be awake and serving God or meditating God. So now, By chance, that day, Latu was sleeping at this time. Now, Ramakrishna gave him a mild scolding. You know, Guru, the work of Guru is to discipline us, to remove our ego, to bring us towards spiritual life. So Guru will give us lot of scoldings. So that will be very good for us to remove all the obstacles, to remove all the ignorance which is there in us, to crush our ego. So the Guru's reprimand or scolding has to be taken as Varaprasada. Now Ramakrishna scolded Latu a little when he found him sleeping in the evening and mildly reproved him, saying, Latu, if you sleep at such a time, sacred time, the time when the lamp is lit to the Lord in the evening, when will you meditate? This small scolding was enough for Latu. And Latu gave up sleeping at night for the rest of his life. Can you imagine? Just one word of the Guru. Ramakrishna told you should not sleep in the evening when the lamp is lit. And that one word of Guru was enough. Latu gave up his night sleep forever. Whole life he never slept in the night. After that, he would be meditating, he would be doing the work of the Guru in the night. He would sleep only in the daytime for some time. That's all. See, just one word of Guru was enough for him to give up his sleep for the rest of his life in the night time. He would sleep in the daytime sometimes, but he would always meditate. He would do the japa, he would do the service of the Lord in the night time. So just one word of Ramakrishna, if you sleep at such a time, when will you meditate, Latu? It was enough. And Latu gave up sleeping at night for the rest of his life. He would take a short nap in the daytime and pass the nights awake, pouring all his energy on repeating the sacred name or meditating on God. Though Latu held Sri Ramakrishna in the high esteem, he had with him a very close relationship. Describing his own attitude, he said later, did I take Sri Ramakrishna as God? Had it been so, how could I serve him or live in his whole close company? Sri Ramakrishna appeared to me as my dear father. So I had no anxiety and I was quite free with him. So you should note that Ramakrishna used to always tell, while going forward in spiritual life, we should establish a relationship with God. Then only the progress of ours in spiritual life will be quick. You can establish the relationship with God as your father, as your mother, as your brother, as your friend, as your beloved, whatever. But Ramakrishna used to tell, you should establish a relationship with God. Then your spiritual progress is quite quick. Now, what kind of relationship? Though Ramakrishna was God himself, the Avatara Purusha, but Latu had established a sweet relationship of father and son. He used to look after Ramakrishna as his own father. So Latu himself is telling, Ramakrishna appeared to me as my dear father. So I had no anxiety and I was quite free with Sri Ramakrishna. The dedicated personal service Latu offered to Ramakrishna was spontaneous. He seemed to understand Sri Ramakrishna every need. Even before Sri Ramakrishna told something, he could understand his need and he would do those things. The dedicated personal service Latu offered was spontaneous. He seemed to understand his master's every need and gave him the tender care a mother might give her child, little child. You know, Latu used to scold Ramakrishna also as a mother, like a mother. Latu scolding him when Ramakrishna did not eat enough or was too indifferent to his own welfare, then Latu would scold him and make him eat more food. That was the way, like a mother, Latu served Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishnananda, another direct disciple, was earlier called Shashibhushan Chakravarti, admitted that Ramakrishnananda himself learned the technique of loving service from Latu. Another great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, that is Ramakrishnananda or Shashibhushan Chakravarti, was noted for his Guru Bhakti, for the service of the Guru. And now Ramakrishnanandaji Maharaj himself is admitting that he learned this technique of serving the Guru Bhakti from Latu. That was the intensity of Guru Bhakti you can learn from Latu. Years later, Latu, who was then called Swami Adbhutananda, he said in his old age, Latu's teaching is, many do not succeed in religious practices for they do not live their lives in obedience to the instructions of their gurus. Once more, I will state the teaching of Latu in his later period as Swami Adbhutananda. Latu Maharaj used to tell many of the spiritual aspirants, they do not succeed in religious practices for they do not live their lives in obedience to the instructions of their gurus. Now, Latu's own life was an illustration of perfect obedience. He was unlettered and unsophisticated as he was. So, this was very easy, no ego of big scholarship. So, he never questioned or doubted his master's words. Any words from the master's lips were final and binding on him. No more argument. To the ardent disciple, that is Latu, Sri Ramakrishna was everything. Friend, Ramakrishna was his friend. Ramakrishna was his philosopher and guide in one. Latu once resolved that on waking up, he would see first no other face. When he started living with Ramakrishna, that was his habit. In India, we are taught the moment you get up early in the morning, you have to turn rightwards in the right direction and then wake up on your bed. Then the first thing you have to see is you have to see the face of God or a photo of God or your Ishtadevta. That's how our mothers, our elders taught us. The moment you get up from your bed, you have to turn right and you have to see the photo of the Lord. Nobody else. Suppose there is some mishap, there is some accident, there is some trouble. They used to ask us, Did you not see the face of the Lord in the morning? Did you see somebody else's face? So we had to compulsorily, the moment we get up, see the photo of the Lord, pray to Him. If you don't have the photo, then what is to be done? To get up, wipe your hands like this. When it is warm, keep it on the eyes. Then you have to see both the hands. Then you have to tell the mantra, Karagre Vartate Lakshmi. So all that Karamule to Saraswati. So Karamadhye Saraswati. So all that mantras have to be chanted. What is that? At the Karagre, at the top portion is Lakshmi. You can see the Lakshmi. Karamadhye. Then at the center of the hands you can see Saraswati. Karamule. At the root of the palm towards the hand here, you see that is the place where Mother Parvati, Gauri. So Prabhate Karadarshanam. Early morning, you have to see your hands and you have to feel the presence of Mother Lakshmi at the top, Mother Saraswati at the center, and Mother Gauri at the bottom. So that is the practice. The mantra is told, and you have to do that every day. Karagre Vartate Lakshmi. So there are all the practices. Now, what was the practice of Latu? The moment Latu would get up, he had made the habit of seeing Ramakrishna, the face of Ramakrishna. So he would not see anything. He would not go anywhere. The moment he gets up, he wants to go and see the face of Sri Ramakrishna. Latu once resolved that on waking up, he would see first no face other than that of his master, Sri Ramakrishna. One morning, when Latu got up, he could not see his master. He was not there. And so he began to shout for him, "Where are you? O Lord, where are you? Gurudeva, O Ramakrishna, where are you?" He covered his eyes. He would not see anything. Covering his eyes, he started walking here and there, searching for Sri Ramakrishna. Latu began to shout for Ramakrishna with his eyes shut. "O Lord, O Gurudeva, O Ramakrishna, where are you? Where are you?" The moment he got up, he would not see anybody else's face. Hearing Latu's voice, Sri Ramakrishna came running and rescued him. Otherwise, he would have fallen down. Otherwise, he would have an accident. He would not care. The boy never cared. The boy wanted to see his guru's face. That's all. He shut his eyes and started walking and searching for Sri Ramakrishna, loudly shouting, "Oh, where are you, O Gurudeva? Where are you, Ramakrishna? Where are you?" Hearing Latu's voice, Sri Ramakrishna had to come running, came and rescued him. Now you can see the vyakulata. If you search for God, how the Lord will come rushing to you. Ramakrishna has given this wonderful example how to call God. He gives the example of the mother and the child. The baby now wants mother. It cries. The mother comes. She has a lot of work to do. She will give a toy, one or two toys or something else. And now the baby will be immersed in the toy. And it will forget the mother. Just like we call God. We want something. The Lord will give us car. The toys like car, richness, a good wife or a good husband, good children, wealth, and so many other things. And we are satisfied with all these gadgets. And we forget the real mother, that is God. Then again we will cry. When the baby cries, it's bored with the toy. Then the mother will come, give it sweet chocolates and other things to eat. The child is satisfied, it forgets the mother. So like that, whenever the child cries, the mother will come and give it something tempting. Nowadays, I see the mothers give the iPad, the mobile phone, and so many other gadgets. The children start watching those cartoons and some other things, and the mother will be busy in her own work, which is a very bad tendency of the mothers to give them this iPad at such a small age. The children get addicted, and also they will spoil their eyes. Their eyesight will be gone. So, whatever that might be, we see the present day mothers giving all these things. But coming to the subject, Ramakrishna used to tell that when the baby afterwards it is bored with all the toys, it is not interested in the food, it is not interested in the sweets and other things, it wants only mother and mother alone, then it will cry. It will cry so loudly. Even if mother is busy lifting up the rice from the oven and any important work, she will give it up and come rushing towards the child and takes the child and cajoles and consoles the child and looks after the child. Likewise, Ramakrishna used to tell, if you give up everything and call on God, I want God and God alone, don't want your toys and temptations, then the Lord cannot withstand your cry. Just like we are hungry for so many things, what is God hungry? God is soul hungry, says Mirabai. So God will come rushing towards us. You can see here, Latu every day morning used to get up and see the face of Ramakrishna first. But for that, you would not see anybody's face or anything else. One day he couldn't see Ramakrishna, started shutting his eyes and shouting for his Gurudeva, O Ramakrishna, where are you, where are you? Hearing Latu's voice, Sri Ramakrishna came and rescued him, or he might have fallen down or got into he could have crashed himself to the wall or somewhere and fallen down and hurt. Latu was one of the very few who were permitted to attend on Holy Mother Sharda Devi. Nobody could see, nobody could go and serve Mother Sharda Devi. Pavitrata Swarupini, Lajja Patavrite, shy by nature, mother would not talk or see anybody. In those days, that was the practice. No other men or youths could see the women. They were covered, they were behind a wheeled screen, bamboo screen. So even mother stayed in the Nahabat, but that Nahabat was covered by a bamboo screen. If Holy Mother wanted to see Ramakrishna, then she had made a hole in that screen and she would watch Ramakrishna where he is to serve or whatever. When she wanted to watch him, her own husband, she had to see through that wheel or that screen, hole of the screen. Now, Latu, he was so pure. He was one of the few who were permitted to attend on Holy Mother. What all did he do? How did he serve Holy Mother Sharda Devi? Latu would go help Mother Sharda Devi to knead the flour, that is the wheat flour, to prepare chapatis. He used to wash utensils for Mother, and also he used to do marketing. He used to go out if Mother gives the list of vegetables or provisions, he used to do the marketing and so on. Holy Mother Sharda Devi loved this young boy as her own child, and he in turn held Holy Mother Sharda Devi in a very high esteem. And what were the remark of Latu Maharaj about Mother Sharda Devi? He said, Latu Maharaj, he knew, he had seen. He said, she, that is Holy Mother Sharda Devi, is none other than Lakshmi. Again he said, Mother Sharda Devi knows my past, my future and everything. I do not speak about Holy Mother Sharda Devi to all and sundry because they won't understand her. Rather, they will misunderstand. Now, while Latu devoted his heart and soul in the service of Sri Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna guided him imperceptibly but firmly along the spiritual path. So effective was the guidance of Sri Ramakrishna as a guru that in just in 4 years' time, Latu made astounding progress in spirituality. So much so that so much spiritual progress was attained by Latu, so much so that Sri Ramakrishna himself said of Latu on 20th June 1884, the nature of these attendants of mine is undergoing a change. Latu is always tense with spiritual emotion. He is about to merge himself in God. Such yearning for God invited problems and dangers too for him. But Sri Ramakrishna would be always there to protect him like a loving mother. One day, Latu Maharaj was meditating on the bank of Ganga. He was immersed in God so much so that so much of concentration he had forgotten his body. He had forgotten the outer surrounding where he sat. When he was sitting so deep in meditation on the bank of Ganga, there came the flood tide. Every month, once or twice in the Ganga, the water which is flowing towards the sea, because of the nearness of the moon, there will be a high tide back from the sea into the river. So the water gushes with so much of force, with so much of high waves banging the banks of the Ganga everywhere. So anybody near the bank would be swept away. So at that time, even the boats will not be on the bank or the shore. It will be stationed. Those boatmen know the time when the high tide comes. So they take the boat to the center. At the center of the river, the waves will not be very harsh. So at the edges, the waves will be too high. So the waves will be splashing and smashing everything nearby. It will sweep away everything. Now, when Latu was meditating on God, sitting on the bank, oblivious of the surrounding, he was so immersed in God. He had made so much of progress, he was not aware of the things outside. Then this high tide came, and what happened? The flood tide and water surrounded Latu. The news reached Sri Ramakrishna, who at once rushed to the place and brought Latu back to his consciousness. He protected him. Another day, Latu was deeply absorbed in meditation in one of the Shiva temple. If you go to Dakshineshwar, there are 12 Shiva temples there. So he was sitting there in one of the Shiva temple and meditating. Hours passed unnoticed. Coming to know of Latu's whereabouts, Sri Ramakrishna came and began to fan Latu. Can you imagine? The Guru fanning the disciple. There is no air conditioning. There's no, at that time, there was no electricity, no fan. Even now, there is no fan. And Calcutta and Bengal is very sultry. It's very humid. You'll be sweating just like rain, so much of sweat. So now Latu is sitting in that Shiva temple and deeply absorbed in meditation. It was so hot, he was sweating. So now Ramakrishna, the Guru, came in search of the disciple and saw Latu deeply meditating there in the Shiva temple. What did he do? He immediately bought the fan and started fanning so that the body of Latu, his disciple, should be kept cool. Hours passed. Sri Ramakrishna began to fan Latu, who was perspiring. Now, after much time, when Latu regained his normal consciousness, Latu felt deeply embarrassed. What is this? I am the disciple, I have to serve the Guru, and I have made what a great sin is it from me. I am getting the service from my Guru. He felt deeply embarrassed. In fact, during these days, the master, Sri Ramakrishna, was taking care of his attendant instead of the attendant taking care of the master. With the gradual unfoldment of the inner life of Latu, now Latu became a changed person. His complexion became bright because the Lord is manifesting from within. So the old rough demeanor is gone. There is brightness in his face, in his whole body, light is emanating. His complexion became bright. His look steadfast, sharp and meaningful. His voice became solemn and commanding. His gait measured and slow. The rustic body was gradually transformed into a self-confident disciple. And now he is the apostle of Sri Ramakrishna. Now you can see the training of the Guru brought in so much of change in this wonderful disciple. So the Guru Seva, nothing else, no scholarship, no study, no scriptures, just by the service, his intense devotion to the Guru, he could get everything. After 8 months, long months, Ramakrishna stay in Kamarpukur. One day, Ramchandra Datta again sent. We will go a little earlier to Latu, to the temple garden with some fruits and sweets for the master. In the evening, Sri Ramakrishna asked Latu to stay the night. After supper, at master's request, Latu began to massage his feet. Kedarnath Chatterjee, another householder disciple, a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, was there at that time, recalled the following conversation between Latu and Sri Ramakrishna. How Ramakrishna would transfer the spiritual power to his disciple while serving. Now he is massaging the feet of Sri Ramakrishna. Latu sitting there. Ramakrishna asked Latu, Latu, do you feel sleepy? To which Latu replied, no, sir. Again, master asked him, Latu, are you afraid of anything? To which Latu replied, no, sir. Again, master asked him, Latu, is your mind upset? No, sir. Again, master is telling, are you sure you aren't sleepy? Yes, sir. Then again, Sri Ramakrishna asked him, Then why are your eyes like that? I don't know, sir. After a while, Latu began to weep. Ramakrishna asked, why are you weeping, Latu? What happened to you? Tell me. Then turning towards Kedarnath, who was sitting there, the devotee, the householder devotee, was sitting there, Kedarnath Chatterjee, he said, look at this boy. He's weeping and he's not telling me anything. Now Kedarnath said, sir, master, it is your play. You have transmitted spiritual power to him. That's why Latu is behaving like that. He's in an ecstatic mood now. So this is how when Latu used to serve Sri Ramakrishna, this is how Ramakrishna used to transfer the spiritual power and remove all the obstacles in his mind, the ajnana, the nuisance. The master once said to Latu, Latu, be careful about wine and about lust and gold. So Ramakrishna used to give him teachings. He once said to Latu, Latu, be careful about wine, that is alcohol, and about lust and gold, kamakanchana. These things are obstacles that create doubts about God. So now, why should spiritual aspirants give up alcohol, the lust and gold? Because Ramakrishna is telling these things are obstacles that create doubt about God. Now Ramakrishna is further telling to Latu, a person or a spiritual aspirant who meditates after taking intoxicants like drugs, opium, or alcohol, and then he claims that I will use that for concentration of mind and think of God. About such people, Ramakrishna is telling a person who meditates after taking intoxicant and a yogi who is attached to women, that is lust, are both hypocrites and they only deceive themselves. So Ramakrishna is subtly teaching Latu about the secrets of spiritual life. He's telling him, Latu, be careful about wine and about lust and gold. These things are obstacles that create doubts about God. A person who tries to meditate after taking intoxicants and a yogi who is attached to woman are both hypocrites, or a yogini, a woman who is a yogi, is attached to man. A person who is attached to woman or woman to man are both hypocrites. If they claim that they are yogi, they are going forward in spiritual life, they only deceive themselves. Latu himself said later, one day I was going from Dakshineshwar to Ramchandra Babu's house in Calcutta. There was a grog, there was a wine shop at the Kashipur Garden Road junction. And when I passed that place, my mind became restless, although I did not know why. When I returned to Dakshineshwar, I told Sri Ramakrishna about it and he said, the odor of the wine caused restlessness in your mind. Avoid it from now on. Latu followed Sri Ramakrishna's instruction literally. And one day, Ramchandra Datta spoke to Sri Ramakrishna about it. Sir, what have you asked Latu to do? In order to follow your advice, he walks 8 miles to Calcutta. The normal distance is 4 miles. He walks about some roundabout route, to which Sri Ramakrishna replied, I don't remember Latu telling to do such a thing. Then Ramchandra Datta told, you asked him to avoid the smell of wine. Sri Ramachandra, when he told it, as a result, not only will he not go near a wine shop where it is sold, he will not even walk down the street where such a shop is located. He takes some other route. Now, Ramakrishna told Latu, Leto, I asked you not to smell wine. I didn't forbid you to walk down the street where it is sold. It won't hurt you to pass near the shop. Now, wonderful words of Sri Ramakrishna, we shall note it. Now, Ramakrishna is telling, pointing to his own body, remember this. That is, remember Sri Ramakrishna. Remember this, pointing to his own body, and no intoxicant will be able to disturb you. What a wonderful lesson for all of us. If we have any temptations in our life, of anything, not only of wine or any other thing, Ramakrishna is giving a wonderful solution. Remember this, pointing to his own body. And Ramakrishna is telling, no intoxicant will be able to disturb you. One day, Latu walked out on the western veranda in Dakshineshwar and saw Sri Ramakrishna in the flower garden. Now Latu asked him, Sir, what are you doing? Ramakrishna told, yesterday, a devotee bought a pair of sandals for you, Latu. Slippers, a pair of sandals for you. And I can't find another one. I can find only one of them. Maybe in the night a jackal or a dog might have taken the other. So I am looking for it. Latu became very upset. He told in a plaintive voice, Sir, please come here. Don't search for that sandal or the slipper. Now Ramakrishna replied, But I shall feel sorry if you can't wear these new sandals. To know exactly what was the other sandal like, Ramakrishna carried one of the slippers which was there left of Latu with his own hand to find the other one, to find the suit, the other pair. And he was searching in the garden if the dog or the jackal has taken and left it there. So can you imagine the guru searching for the slippers of the disciple? That was the intensity of love the guru used to show to the disciple. That is the way Sri Ramakrishna used to conquer all his disciples, by his selfless love. Ramakrishna is telling, when Latu told, Sir, don't carry my slippers, please throw it away. Ramakrishna is replying, But I shall feel sorry if you can't wear these new sandals, replied the master. since it was only yesterday that the devotee bought this pair of sandals to you. Latu anxiously said, Sir, please stop it. If you keep looking for my sandals, it will be harmful for me. My whole day will be spent in vain. The disciple is expected to serve the Guru. The reverse is not only unusual, but in our tradition, in the Indian tradition or the Hindu religion, it is even considered inauspicious for the disciple. Now Ramakrishna responded when Latu told, please do not do that, sir. When he told, if you carry my slippers, my whole day will be in vain, spent in vain if you do this. To which Sri Ramakrishna responded, Latu, do you know what day is really spent in vain? That day when the Lord's name is not chanted. All these things will not make your day go in vain. What really makes your day go in vain is, Sri Ramakrishna is telling Latu, which is a great message to all of us. When will our day go in vain? Ramakrishna is telling, do you know, Latu, what day is really spent in vain? That day when the Lord's name is not chanted. If you don't take the name of the Lord, if you don't chant the name of the Lord, if you don't remember God, that day is really spent in vain. You know, one of the Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, it tells, Te Atmahan. Shankaracharya explaining about the meaning of this Te Atmahan, whatever is told in this wonderful great Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad. What is the meaning of Te Atmahan? We think that a person commits suicide, he has to take a rope and hang himself, or take the poison, or jump into the river, or jump in front of the speeding train, or so many ways are there. That is not suicide. But that Upanishad tells that much of your time, that much of your life, that time you don't think of God, you don't think of the Paramatman or the Parabrahman or the Atman, then that much of time you are committing suicide. The Atmahananokaraha. People are committing suicide when they don't think of God. When you are not remembering your own self, that is the Atman or Paramatman or Parabrahman, then in reality you are committing suicide. That much of time you are committing suicide. So that is the word of the Ishavasya Upanishad. That much of the time we are committing suicide when we are not meditating on God. You may be living, just like Swami Vivekananda has told, they alone live who live for others. Live for others means seeing God in other human beings and serving them. They alone live who live for others. The rest are more dead than alive. If you are not seeing God in every living being and serving them, if you are living a selfish life, only bothered about your enjoyments, then they are more dead than alive. So something similar. If you don't think of God, that much of time you don't meditate on God, that much of time you're spending in some other enjoyments, some other things, reading novels, seeing, watching TV, that and this, instead of meditating and thinking of God, then that much of time you're committing suicide, tells the Ishavasya Upanishad. So Ramakrishna is responding to Latu. Latu, do you know what day is really spent in vain? That day when the Lord's name is not chanted. When you don't remember God that particular day, your day is gone in vain. As Latu had not received formal schooling, Ramakrishna hoped that he might acquire at least a rudimentary education. So Sri Ramakrishna tried to take Latu through the Bengali alphabet himself, showing him the first few letters. The master carefully gave Latu their proper pronunciation and asked him to repeat them. But Latu was from Bihar, and his pronunciation was quite different from that of the Bengali people. Ramakrishna corrected him repeatedly with much amusement, but the result was always the same. Latu would pronounce the same in his Bihari style. Both the master and the disciple, Latu, began to laugh, and the lesson was stopped for that day. The experiment of teaching Latu the rudimentary education, reading and writing, by Ramakrishna himself continued for 3 days, after which Sri Ramakrishna gave up in despair and told Latu, "No more book learning for you, Latu." Thus ended Latu's literary education. Sri Ramakrishna always stressed the necessity of harmonizing the various paths to God. At one time, he told a group of disciples, "Don't be one-sided. Our attitude towards the Lord must be symphonic in nature, made up of many instruments. It is a feast of many dishes." The master took great pains to develop this ideal in the lives of his young disciples. So, what is that symphony? What is that harmony? He led them through the 4 yogas. You have to combine the 4 yogas. You should not be just fanatic telling, "I like only Bhakti yoga, I like only Gnana yoga." No, that is not correct way. Ramakrishna always stressed the necessity of harmonizing various paths of God. Don't be one-sided. Ramakrishna used to tell, our attitude towards God must be symphonic in nature and made up of many instruments. It is a feast of many dishes. He stressed the combination of all 4 yogas. He led them through the 4 yogas. What are they? The path of discrimination, Gnana Yoga. The path of devotion, Bhakti Yoga. The path of unselfish action, Karma Yoga. And the path of meditation, introspection, that is Gnan, Raja Yoga. So the harmony should be there. Why should you harmonize? Why did Ramakrishna stress that you should harmonize these 4 yogas? You should not be one-sided. What are these yogas made to cater to? Because our mind, our personality, our mind has the 4 faculty. The 4 divisions are there in our mind. What is that? The analyzing, the scientific, the intellectual aspect, the discriminating portion of the mind. For that, the rishis and munis have developed the Gnana Yoga. Then there is the emotional aspect. For that, the Bhakti Yoga. All of us have this emotional habit, emotions in us. For that, the Bhakti Yoga. Then we have the introvert nature, analyzing our own mind, watching our own mind. concentrating our own mind. For that, it is the Raja Yoga. And we have the restlessness. We want to do this, we want to do that. You can't keep quiet. And for that aspect of our mind, the extrovert nature of our mind, the rishis have done this karma yoga, selfless action. So when you combine all these four, you may like something, make that as the main point. Swami Vivekananda tells, just like the bird, for a very successful and good healthy flight, it should have the beak and the head properly. Then the wings should be healthy. Then the 2 feet of the bird, legs, and the rudder. The back, the feather will be made in such a way for the direction, the rudder. So if all four work properly, then the flight of the bird will be healthy and good. If you concentrate, if only the head is grown, just like in the some of the birds, the wings are not developed, then your flight will not be good. And if your wings are good, the beak and the head are not properly, the direction, the breaking of the winds and moving forward and thinking will not happen. If the rudder is not proper, then the direction will be lost. If the legs are not proper, then the landing will not be good or the takeoff will not be good. So for the bird to have a good flight, all the four organs have to be well developed. Likewise, now Ramakrishna is telling the spiritual aspirants that you should not be one-sided. They should be symphony, healthy combination of all these four yogas, because all these four faculties are there in our mind. Then why do I like only Bhakti Yoga? Somebody likes Bhakti Yoga, somebody likes Jnana Yoga. As of now, your tendency, your habit, maybe your stages of evolution, you have developed that faculty of devotion, emotion. You are emotional by nature. Then what about the other faculties? It is unmanifested. It is in its potential form. So what is the real way of progressing forward in spiritual life? You have to develop all the four faculties. One-sided thing will not have a good progress in spiritual life. So for that, we need holistic development. That's why for scientific progress in spiritual life, Sri Ramakrishna always stressed the necessity of harmonizing various paths to God. Should not be one-sided, you should not be fanatic. He led them through the four yogas, the paths of discrimination, that is Gnana Yoga, the path of devotion, that is Bhakti Yoga, the path of unselfish action, that is Karma Yoga, and the path of meditation, that is Raja Yoga. At the same time, Ramakrishna would select a particular yoga most suitable to the temperament of an individual disciple and recommend that path in order to awaken the disciple's spiritual energy. Sri Ramakrishna knew that Latu was of emotional nature. What is suited for him? Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Ramakrishna encouraged Latu to take part in kirtan, bhajan, devotional singing. The following incident was related by Ramlal, the nephew of Ramakrishna. What is that? One day, some devotees from Konnagara came to Dakshineshwar and began to sing the Lord's name in the presence of Sri Ramakrishna. The master and Latu also joined the singing. It was the first time that I had seen Latu join in a group as this. He was seated in a corner, but when the master called him, he at once came forward and soon started to dance. In time, however, he became tired and lay down. The master saw this and began to sing Rama Nama, the glorious name of Lord Rama. As he danced around Latu's prostrate body, never before had I heard the master sing Rama Nama so sweetly. one of the devotees from Konnagar became overwhelmed by the mood of the singing and with great emotion fell at Sri Ramakrishna's feet. Because Latu was of devotional nature, emotional nature, how Ramakrishna opened up the gates of bhakti, the emotions, directing the emotions towards God, can be seen here. Latu was very eager to serve his Guru. One day he learned that Master had expressed a wish to have a picture of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for his room. And the next day, Latu ran to Ramachandra Datta in Calcutta to obtain one. When Sri Ramakrishna saw the new picture in his room, he asked, "Did Ramachandra Datta mind you are asking for this picture? Did you ask for it in my name?" "No," replied Latu. "I didn't mention your name. I simply asked him for a picture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." "Oh, indeed," said the master. "And what was his reply?" "He advised me to go to mother, that is Ramachandra Datta's wife, and ask for one." "Good," said the master. "But here, Latu, you should never ask for anything in my name. According to the scriptures, it is not good for yogis to accept gifts. In the Ashtanga Yoga, Yama Niyama, in the yoga, it is told aparigraha, non-acceptance of gift. So the yogis who are going quickly in spiritual life should follow this very strictly, non-acceptance of gift. So Ramakrishna is telling you should never ask for anything in my name. Why? According to the scriptures, it is not good for yogis to accept gifts. So if you do not accept gifts, follow this vrata, aparigraha for 12 years, then you get a siddhi. What is that siddhi? Jatismara. What is meant by Jatismara? You will come to know what were all your births in your earlier life. We have taken 8.4 million lives, births to become the human being, first human birth. And after that, we had so many different births. We might have been born as donkey, the pig, the elephant, and different animals or different lives. So if you follow this aparigraha, the vrata of non-acceptance of gift, the memory of all your life, all your births, the last birth will come and stand in front of you. What is the use of that memory of all the lives? What? Had I become a donkey? Had I become a pig? Was I a vermin? Was I in such bad life? You will get vairagya. Enough of this life. Let me go towards God. I should not have these desires. I should go and merge in God. So you get vairagya, dispassion. So that's how you get vairagya. So aparigraha. According to the scriptures, it is not good for yogis to accept gifts. This frees the yogi from being influenced by the giver and also from any obligation to him. So, since we are almost on the verge of completing our time, we will stop this discussion or meditation on the wonderful life of Adbhutananda, and through that, the wonderful meditation on Sri Ramakrishna. So, if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, you can entertain that. Any doubts, any questions on what we have discussed today, or anything pertaining to spiritual life?
Swamiji.
Yes, Shrikant, please tell.
Swamiji, amongst other lessons, what we were taught today is the importance of serving the Guru. If our Gurus are overseas and cannot directly serve, how should we, for our all benefit in this class, how should we serve the Guru in that instance?
Yesterday, you yourself sent one of the uh, talks of revered Swami Gautamananda Ji Maharaj, who is the Guru of many people here in Johannesburg and South Africa. He gave that talk in Pune, in Maharashtra. So there, the Swami is asking the common questions of all the devotees. In that, one of the question was, how can we serve the Guru? In spiritual life, serving the Guru is important. How can we serve the Guru? Guru will be somewhere else, we will be somewhere else. How can we serve physically? To which Revered Gautamananda Ji Maharaj replied, in olden days, they used to live in the Gurukula. There would be only 50 or 60 or 100 disciples. So they could all in turn serve the Guru in the Gurukula, living with him, getting the guidance. But nowadays, the Gurus will be having thousands and thousands of disciples all over the world. Then how to serve the Guru? It is impossible. Practically, it is impossible. These are all the words of Revered Gautamananda Ji Maharaj. Yesterday, I heard that Shrikant himself had sent that, and I've shared that in our group too. So now, Revered Gautamananda Ji Maharaj tells, so physical service is almost now difficult. So what is the remedy? If you follow the teachings, if you follow the ideals to which the Guru stands for, then that will be the real service. So the first thing Revered Gautamananda Ji Maharaj was told was how to serve the Guru. By following the teachings of the Guru properly in their life and doing the sadhana, that will be the best way of serving the Guru. Secondly, if you can follow the ideals for which the Guru and the Ishtadevata stands for, that will be the next. Then what else? Now, Revered Gautamananda Ji Maharaj tells, Swami Vivekananda tells that Ramakrishna Ashrama is nothing but the physical body of Ramakrishna. So if you do the work of the ashrama, the monastery or the temple of your Guru, if you serve the ashrama, the devotees, the ideals, the poor people, where there will be service, just like Johannesburg Ashrama goes to different places like Lenasia and some other age center and some other orphanage and some other hospitals. We serve the people there. So the ashrama has a lot of activities in this way, humanitarian activities, the service of the devotees, they come to satsang. So this, what is an ashrama? It is not just the building or the stone or the land. It is the people who are there, who come, and the work, the ideal which they stand for, and the work they do. So if you participate in that and do that with great sincerity, serve the ashrama, serve the devotees, serve the poor people, seeing God in every living being, that itself will be the service to the Guru. These were the words of Revered Gautamananda Ji Maharaj. I think you have got the answer. This was told by Revered Gautamananda Ji Maharaj. Any other questions? Any other doubts? Okay, if you don't have any questions, any doubts, then I can conclude with the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prinite Prinitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Om Namo Narayanaya. Thank you. We will meet again to discuss the same thing in the next class, that is tomorrow. Today is Thursday, tomorrow is Friday. We will be meeting again to continue with the same session. Thank you. Om Namo Narayana.